In this video we are going to take a closer look at the veteran bikers of the Deathwatch. First we will take a look at their datasheet and general abilities, then we will go through how to specifically make use of them in a Deathwatch army and how they compare to the infamous Outriders. Lastly, there will be some modeling recommendations and a quick wrap up. Welcome to SwissHammer, your channel for modeling in Warhammer 40k. My name is Tammer and I will be guiding you through this video. On page 124 of the Space Marine Codex, there is a passage about non-codex compliant chapters and what kind of units they are not allowed to bring along. For the Deathwatch, this includes the attack bike and bike squads among other things. Instead, the Deathwatch gets access to the so-called veteran bike squad. If we compare the two datasheets, what is pretty funny is that while the veteran bikes cost the exact same as the regular Space Marine bikes, they get the extra attack and point of leadership. Another difference is that while the regular biker squad size is between 2 to 7 bikes plus the sergeant, the veteran bikes are limited to 2 to 5 bikes plus the sergeant. There is still the option to take 0 to 1 attack bikes though, which is also the only way for the Deathwatch to bring them along in the first place. This is rather unfortunate because as it currently stands in 9th edition, attack bikes with multi-meltas count among the popular meta picks, but only when used in separate attack bike squads and not when included in the biker squads. The attached cost of a minimum of 3 bikers is simply too great to justify the advantages of getting a single attack bike. For the purposes of this video, the important takeaway is that the option is there, but it is not a competitive pick. Returning to their datasheet, what further stands out is the great movement as well as toughness 5 and 3 wounds. I always thought it is pretty hilarious that they get the toughness 5 instead of the Terminators. But anyway, for abilities, they got the turbo boost, which basically means that they can advance the max amount. While they do have the biker keyword, they do not have the core keyword, which is a bit odd given that the regular bikes and the Outriders both have it. More on this later though. For weapons, they have the twin bolt guns on the bikes, which no longer get access to special issue ammunition. The regular veteran bikers then get the option to take either a bolt pistol, a chainsword, a power axe, power maul, or power sword. The sergeant on the other hand gets access to a huge range of weapons as is befitting of the Deathwatch. This includes the Deathwatch shotgun, stalker pattern bolt gun, or 2 items from the extensive Deathwatch equipment list. Among those count the popular storm shields or even the Xenophase blade. Furthermore, thanks to the sanction of the Black Vault stratagem, the sergeant could even take the artificial bolt cache relic and gain back access to special issue ammunition. Personally, I don't think it's worth it given the low number of shots though. Speaking of stratagems, the bikers can also be put into the teleportarium, they get access to the fallback and charge stratagem, and there are also 2 more stratagems for biker units from the regular Space Marine Codex. Hit and run warfare enables them to fall back and shoot, while skilled riders makes them -1 to hit. Veteran bikers can also be part of the Proteus Kill Team, so one important thing to consider is whether to bring these guys along as an actual veteran biker squad or to include them in the Proteus Kill Team. When bringing them as their own veteran biker squad, they count as a fast attack choice and they get the biker keyword. As previously mentioned, they do not get the core keyword. I would say the biggest advantage is certainly having the sergeant and his access to a huge range of war gear, or even getting boosted further through the sanction of the Black Vault stratagem. In comparison, if they are part of the Proteus Kill Team, they become troops and therefore gain OPSEC. You can no longer take the sergeant, and you also pay the tax of the initial 5 Deathwatch veterans. However, next to the OBSEC, they now also get the core keyword. From there on, there are basically two ways to play them. For as long as they are mixed with any infantry, they do not gain the biker keyword, but the infantry keyword instead. This means that they lose access to the two stratagems from the Space Marine Codex, fall back and shoot and -1 to hit, though they can regain the fall back and shoot if they are mixed with a Vanguard veteran with a jump pack. If they are used in combat squad of 5 veteran bikers, then they gain the biker keyword but lose the infantry one. Regardless of whether you end up playing them as the biker or the infantry variant in the Proteus Kill Team, as a rule of thumb, I personally think that the veteran bikers should always be used through the Proteus Kill Team instead of the actual veteran biker squad. Gaining both OBSEC and the core keyword greatly outperforms whatever the sergeant can potentially do. With that being said, when part of a Proteus Kill Team, there are basically 3 variants worth mentioning. The first variant would be to bring a single biker along in a Proteus Kill Team to enable the fallback and charge stratagem. The point here is maximizing mixed units rather than playing bikers though, but I added it for completion's sake anyway. The second is the previously mentioned 5 veteran bikers used in a combat squad kind of approach. They gain the biker keyword and with that access to all the previously covered stratagems, but they are now also OBSEC and have the core keyword. This is preferable on maps with not that much terrain, for instance, where they can now make full use of their great default movement and turbo boost ability. With that being said, I personally think that the way to really maximize them is to mix them with Vanguard veterans with jump packs and have them gain the infantry keyword. In this third variant, I have seen either 1 Vanguard veteran with jump pack and 4 veteran bikers, or 2 Vanguard veterans and 3 veteran bikers. The difference here is that if you are taking 2 Vanguard veterans, you can assign wounds to one of the Vanguard veterans with a storm shield. If you only have 1 Vanguard veteran, or the second one got killed, you don't want to assign wounds to that one, because if you lose him, the bikes lose the infantry keyword and become bikers again. The rules for assigning wounds got changed in 9th edition, which means once you start assigning them to one specific model, you have to keep doing it for the rest of the phase. When deciding the toughness of a squad, it is decided by whichever value the majority of models have, which is great, because in this case, the combat squad will keep the toughness 5 of the bikes. In either of these last 2 mentioned variants, I think it is worth equipping them with power swords. Anyway, while discussions about where exactly Deathwatch is standing in terms of tier rankings is still ongoing and remains a topic of great controversy, I personally think that in order to make best use of the faction, we really have to use all the tools available, and infantry bikes are a must as far as I'm concerned. When bringing them along in the Proteus Kill Team in this way, I think the greatest direct competitor will always be the Proteus Kill Team with Outriders. In that particular kill team, a similar approach of infantry bikes can be done by running 4 Outriders with the Intercessor Sergeant. I've covered this in a previous video about viable loadouts in primary skill teams, which is linked in the description. In a direct comparison, we have the default 5 Deathwatch veterans versus the default 5 intercessors as the tax to pay in order to get access to the bikes. On this one, I think that while a single combat squad of either will always be useful somehow in any given matchup, I would say the Deathwatch veterans will come out on top simply because of the huge range of war gear they get access to. When it comes to the bikes itself, the points cost looks as following. Assuming the maximum cost with 4 veteran bikers with power swords and a single Vanguard veteran with jump pack, lightning claw and storm shield, we will end up at the very affordable 160 points. The Outriders plus the Sergeant with the free chainsword will end up at 220 points. On the other hand, the Outriders are of course more durable thanks to the extra wound and access to transhuman, and have an insane amount of attacks when on the charge. They also have bigger bases and as a whole get an advantage when trying to tie up enemy units. In terms of durability, the Outriders easily come out on top. Another advantage of the veteran bikers, however, is that they maintain their great mobility thanks to being paired with the Vanguard veteran with the jump pack. In comparison, the movement of the Outriders is far more limited because of the foot-slogging Intercessor Sergeant. All in all, I would say the Proteus Kill Team with veteran bikers is more of a disruption unit that has to be hidden away carefully and maximize the terrain. Due to their lower points cost, it is also far more easy to bring two Proteus Kill Teams set up like that alone. The Deathwatch veterans aren't really much of a tax here, as they can be tailored to fill any role in any given list. On the other hand, with the Outriders' increased costs, I really wouldn't recommend bringing more than one for this kill team set up like this alone. Overall, the important takeaway here is that both infantry versions of bikers are competitive and worth it depending on the rest of the list. For the Proteus Kill Team and the veteran bikers, I like to think of them as the lighter but more mobile version. Last but not least, let's have a look at some modeling recommendations. Originally, there used to be a Deathwatch biker kit. My understanding is, however, that this was basically just a default Space Marine biker sprue paired with the Deathwatch upgrade sprue. This means that at this point, you would simply have to buy the two separately. At the time of making this video, the bikers seem to be sold out though. Maybe too many people still riding the Dark Angels hype train. Who knows? Poor availability of the biker kit aside, there are also upgrade kits for Ravenwing and White Scar bikes, which could easily be used for some Deathwatch kit bashing. Furthermore, there is also a Ravenwing biker pack, though as with the default bikes, that one seems to be sold out as well. One thing to consider is displaying the power weapons, but depending on which models you take, they drive safely with both hands on the steering wheel. For transparency's sake, a power weapon could be magnetized somewhere on the bike itself. I would consider this optional though. Last and perhaps most expensive, there is a biker model included in the Cassius Kill Team box that looks truly amazing. It might be a little expensive to get a hold of 4 to 5 of these to make a full squad though, and if you have just the one from that box anyway, I would recommend taking it for a Captain on Bike conversion rather than wasting it on a regular veteran biker. To wrap things up, while the Deathwatch does not gain access to the regular bike squads from the Space Marine Codex, they have their own veteran version instead. Rocking a very similar stats line, they get the extra attack as well as a point of leadership for the same cost. When bringing them as the actual veteran bike squad, they count as a fast attack choice. Unfortunately, they did not gain the core keyword and they also don't have access to special issue ammunition. But the one advantage is that their sergeant gets access to a multitude of gear. The, in my opinion, more competitive choice, however, is to bring them along as part of the Proteus Kill Team, where there are basically two main approaches. When bringing them as a separate combat squad of 5 veteran bikers, they get the core keyword and OPSEC, count as bikers, and therefore gain access to their usual stratagems. While this approach isn't bad as such, in order to really maximize their full potential, I think it is best to mix them with at least one Vanguard veteran with a jump pack. That way, they gain the infantry keyword, but they lose access to the -1 to hit stratagem from the Space Marine Codex. I would however argue that their infantry interaction with terrain makes more than up for this. When using them with Vanguard veterans, it is important to always keep at least one Vanguard veteran alive, because otherwise the bikes will lose the infantry keyword. As a general recommendation, I would also equip them with power swords. When directly compared to the Proteus Kill Team with the Infantry Outriders, the veteran bikers are a lighter but faster variant that needs to make good use of terrain. Due to their lower overall points cost, it is however easier to bring 2 Proteus Kill Teams set up like that along, which will give you plenty of board control. All in all, regardless of how exactly the veteran bikers are being used in a Proteus Kill Team, they make an excellent addition. Finally, the Space Marine bike kits can be a bit difficult to get a hold of for the time being, but at least in the Deathwatch we have the luxury to also pick from chapter specific biker kits or upgrade frames and convert them to the Deathwatch. So that's it for the veteran bikers in the Deathwatch. Have you guys been using these yourself, or are you favoring the Outriders instead? Let me know in the comments. Finally, I would also like to mention that there is a SwissHammer Facebook page where I will be posting links to my videos as well as articles I find of interest. I do read a lot about the hobby, but not all of it will always end up as its own video. I look forward to seeing you there as well. I do also have a Patreon page. If you like my content, any additional support is greatly appreciated as it helps me invest into future videos. As always, thank you very much for watching, guys. Your continued support is greatly appreciated. I hope you have been enjoying this video. Give me a thumbs up if you did, and don't forget to subscribe if you haven't done so already. Thanks again and see you next time.